So hi again, everybody. Welcome to Lightroom. I am really proud to have the amazing Nicola, Daley, and Peter James with us, talking about color and light. Their knowledge goes far beyond what at least I've seen and read in books. So this is like really, really special. So to kick this thing off, we thought we'd start talking about that white actually is a color. And there's more to white than just turning on an HMI and balancing it out. Yeah, so starting from there, Peter, we were talking about some pictures you presented for us to get that ready. So maybe we talk about some images about painters and what you see in white and why white is not just white.
Yeah. Hi everybody. Sorry I'm running a bit late. I just got the swatch book, and I think you've all got some swatch books. I'll get a lot of numbers together and yell them out to you, and you can find them in the book a bit later on. It's one of those, when you're picking colours, you've got to sit down and be calm and really concentrate on doing it. And I haven't been calm enough this morning to do this, so hopefully I'll get it right. Yes, I first met Ray Crook, who's an Australian painter, and I did a film called The Irishman up in North Queensland in 1977. And he had a beautiful painting of an Aboriginal girl embroidering on Thursday Island in a little hut. And the girl is jet black. And there's an open window and a door behind her. And the white dress she's in and the white tablecloth that she's got, the fabric, and she's embroidering, were not painted with white paint. They were painted with 5 or 6 different colours of paint to make white paint. So I thought this got me thinking about coloured light, and also in that film I shot the whole film. I shot it on Agfa film, and I shot the stop was T12.5. I remember it. We did it. The whole film was shot at 12.5, and inside and outside. So in the interiors, exteriors I had an ND3 on, 85 N3, and then the interiors I had just an 85 on. And it was a slow film stock, like a 64 ASA. And the feeling was that the outside was always the correct exposure. And the end result of that was fantastic, because it gave you a feeling that the exterior was always there to keep you company. If an Englishman had photographed it, he would have burnt out the windows and doors. But I see the outside as part of our environment, and it's very much part of where we live, and it locates us. So I didn't want it to burn out, which meant I had to light all the interiors up to an exterior stop. So that was a lot of work. But as a result, the lighting is quite bold and contrasty and gutsy, but that got me thinking about coloured light to make white light, and I knew you could do this in the theatre by using red, blue and green to make white. If you do it in the right combination, I thought, well, why not use cyan, magenta, yellow, use the whole spectrum, use the whole colour wheel. You all know the colour wheel, where things are against one another in the colour wheel. And that, and with the swatch book, you've got a colour wheel. So you can create your own palette and create your own colours. So looking at some of these beautiful paintings, I'm putting together a PowerPoint about how the artists, the great artists, can teach us how to do our DI and how to light films, and how they emphasise the characters in their paintings, and we can all learn from that. So this one here, it's not. I think it's a French painter. We could probably go on to the next one.
May I just ask about this painting, because there's more than white happening in there. Is that what's making it special in the white? And what is it that you see in that white that kind of pinged out to you?
Well, I think it's just not flat anymore. It's got movement in it. And I thought, well, often I use an amber key and a blue fill. And sometimes I put them right next to one another. So the blue is closer to the camera, closer to the lens, and then the amber is off to the side, and then the backlight might be even a stronger amber or something like that. And so you get this wraparound of colour that produces white light, but the shadow is, and the highlight's gold, and the shadow is blue, because it's going onto the fill side of the face. And it just gives you a lovely separation. It's simple, but it also becomes almost pointillist in painting style. This is a beauty, isn't it? Look at this sky. It's they're obviously trying to. It's a cloudy sky, but it's at twilight or dawn or something. It's very subtle, and the ice is taking on the blues and greens in the depth in the shadows, and the water, the little bit of water in there is reflecting the sky. I think this is a Canadian painting. I went to the National Gallery there and got some really good white references at that gallery. But a huge contrast with whatever they are, and what are they, horses or caribou or something? I don't know. Are they horses? Yeah, horses, I think. But
you were talking about contrast in whites. Isn't it sometimes interesting, like for the eye, white is only white because you have something dark, and the other way around? So like the white's only white because you got the dark horses there. So it's not only the color, but also the contrast.
Yeah, you have to build that into your shots the same way as the sunflowers are only that particularly yellow because of the blue that they're against. And who's that? It's Van Gogh, isn't it? The sunflowers. Everybody says, "Oh, isn't that a great yellow?" And you think, well, it's just an ordinary yellow. It's a great blue. It's the blue that makes the yellow so fucking great. It really pops. It really makes you sit up and pay attention. So it's how the harmonics of two colours together work. And I think Nicola's going to talk about Matisse and a couple of other people with it's how you combine your colours that's important. That's why this is very important, to be very calm when you make your colour choice, because you've got not frazzled like I am right now. You're going into a very heady space when you start to play with colour, and you've got to know what you're doing. You can't just put on any old colour. It's got to be equal and opposite often in colour value, and otherwise you'll end up with a nightclub lighting. Everything's going to end up with bright magenta, blue, lavender.
Nicola, when you prep films, and because like Peter was saying right now, it's something actually you have to do in piece beforehand. What the technology is leading to right now is giving the feeling like we just can quickly on set swap colors out with whatever is necessary. How do you prep for that you don't get into a position where you're just using your colors to fill it up on set? Yeah.
Yes, if you're frazzled, you just pick red, right? So, I think for me, it always comes from the story and the characters. So I just always go back to the script and the story, and obviously, if you're prepping a feature or a long form piece of work, then as a cinematographer, the visual landscape of the whole piece is incredibly important, and you have to dream that piece as a whole thing, even though you're breaking it down and shooting it in all sorts of orders. So I think prepping wise, if colour is a big thing, which it is for me, then that journey of how those characters go through that colour journey through your visual landscape is incredibly important. So sort of plotting that out, I think, in pre-production.
But do you make short-term decisions too in changing colours on set? Is that something you then go to?
Yes, because I think that even on set, I mean, it's a lot of it's instinctual, right, as well. I mean, you prep so you can throw it away as well. Prep a lot, and then when you're there and the actors have done a certain thing, then you can say, and you're right, now you can just dial in certain colours into sky panels or whatever. So it's if you see something and a colour's doing something, and then I often think I just need some little thing in the background, a little pop or something. And so that kind of thing, when you look at the frame as a whole and you think that it just needs a little bounce off, as if the sunlight is coming in and bouncing off the floor, hitting the wooden furniture, and that glow. I mean, once you see the set and the costumes all together, then you know that informs your work as a cinematographer. So.
Peter, do you do that when you decide your palette for a film, and then you come on the set and you have the feeling something's missing? Do you then have a reference in your colors that you know, well, I'll go to this color because it fits, or is that something you do impulsively on the set too?
Normally, I spend a lot of time in pre-production, like a lot, even if they don't pay me. And this last film I did, they didn't have the money to pay me for the time I wanted to spend in pre-production. I wanted to see every location. I wanted to be with the production designer and the wardrobe and the makeup people as much as possible, so that I was available to them to talk about. It was a film about ladies in 1959 in a department store in Sydney, and it was very much about their wardrobe and the art direction and the makeup and the lipsticks. Like, I've never seen so many different coloured lipsticks. We tested every fucking lipstick. It was fantastic. And even in the DI, we did a pass just for the lipstick, because when you do your general corrections, the fuchsia can go orange with a orange correction on the light. So, you know, I wanted to make sure it was true to the characters of the girls who were wearing the lipsticks. So it was down to that sort of detail, and as a result, the film's pretty well seamless. It's you know, it works really well. But I generally don't all of a sudden say, oh, have you got the special lavender, or you got that rose-coloured gel. It's nice with the new lights that you can actually change them, that's very handy. But generally, I pick a palette for the film, and I stay within the palette. I have gels selected, and we'll get into this a bit as we go along, so that the gaffer's got them on the truck. You can't afford to carry this, you know, like this is millions of dollars worth of gel, you know. And as it is, we do go through a lot of gel. You go through thousands of dollars worth of gel on a film. We try and make them on frames, and the cardinal rule is that every frame has to be numbered. Every colour, every diffusion frame, it has to be numbered, otherwise it's not on the set. Even a cut piece has to be a little cut piece for an inky dinky or a small light. It has to be numbered. And usually they put on it what light it's cut for. It's cut for a 5K or it's cut for a baby, so that the electricians know. A very tidy, organised gel department makes for a very happy running cinematographer and gaffer. So it's good to have a gel boy.
So let's continue here.
Yeah, again, we sort of get through these. This is another Canadian picture, the group of 7. If any Canadians here will know them. They did the most extraordinary work in the Canadian wilderness, and but look at the colours. Can we zoom into the snow and just tilt down a bit? Yeah, good. Look at the greens and magentas, and you know, I don't know what you're seeing up there, but you know, it's not just white, you know, and that's what gives it that depth and that life. It's really spectacular. Okay, next one. And exactly the same thing again. Look at the shadow detail and the amber and the weak sunlight, and where they've walked, they've changed the colour of the snow to make a little track, which is rather clever, painting wise. And then he's added a warm colour over there on the left, just to offset the blues, I suppose, of the shadows. So it makes it very interesting composition.
When you look at this image, is there a color, or what do you think the eye attracts first to pinpoint into the direction that you want the audience to look? Do you use that? Yeah,
well, the eye normally goes to the brightest thing in the frame. That's what, you know, our eyes are trained to do that. And they say you only have colour vision in the centre of your eye, and then the outsides of your eye is all black and white, but your brain fills in the rest. And I'd like to know more about that. That's an interesting the brain fills in an awful amount of detail. But again, it's using the blue in the shadows that makes that white snow glow even more. If it had just been grey, it wouldn't have had the warmth to the snow and the warmth to the sunlight, that weak winter sun. That it's the blue, like the sunflowers, that is giving the sunlight the look. Again, very subtle, but again, it's all done with textures. The smooth road is done, and the rough, it's been ploughed. The road's been ploughed for the school bus to go through, and he's used the black dog greeting the person off the bus, and the dark sky, which really accentuates the snow.
I want to get back to the question of when you want to create a dark night, is it the opposite? Like you put in something bright to make the dark darker, and the opposite way too?
What, for night shooting?
Yeah.
Well, gosh, we could talk about this for the whole bloody show. The night shooting isn't just a matter of underexposure. You do have to have a tonal range in your night, even though it may be a compressed tonal range. But you don't really want something at key because it's going to just become daylight. You want to have you want to, like, if you're in a coal mine and there's no electricity and the miners are trapped underground, how do you photograph them? You've got to be able to see them. So it's a matter of coming up with a lighting technique where it's all compressed down into the last 3 greys of the grayscale. And you may ask wardrobe not to give you white shirts, or they wouldn't have white shirts underground anyway. But but if it was a plane crash and they were stuck at night in the plane crash, there might be white shirts, and you work with the art department and the wardrobe, and just let's tack all this stuff down, let's tone it down. They may even have different wardrobe for night and for day, in some cases. So they'll do that for you, on a film, and even on a small film, it's not expensive to do that.
It's interesting about the white. I always say to costume designers and everything, don't give me white. But on this last show I did an American TV show, and she put an African-American actress in a white costume, and I said to her, the costume designer, maybe that's not a great idea. And she said, in this world of digital and latitude and everything, I thought it was all right. Yeah. And so we had a big discussion. But it's still very important to talk to all departments about and collaborate across the board.
Yeah, well, we do have high dynamic range, but depending on how dark the person's flesh tone is, like on Miss Daisy, they had a black maid, Idella, and she was very black, and she had a white collar on. And I said, oh guys, can you tack that collar down a little bit, because I'm going to be putting a little bit more light on her, and it will lighten her collar as well. So they did, and it generally works. You've got to be careful how much you tack. You can see the tacking, like they dip it in tea or whatever they do. They just tone it down, and we've got some examples of that coming up. Is that all our pictures? Yeah, just I think this is Alex Coville, another Canadian. Just zoom into the boat, if you would. Look at that boat. Look at those colours and that. Like, must have been painful to paint, How meticulous is that? Like, that's a work of art in itself. If that was a canvas in an art gallery, people would say, wow, isn't that cool, with a black line running down it or something, that would be it.
Do you, looking at and your how you concentrate on the whites, do you shoot in white rooms, or do you try to take the color down from the white, or do you actually like working with white environments? Looking at this.
I prefer not to have a white room because it doesn't take colour, it just becomes overexposed. There's a colour called, what's the one I use? White duck. I like white duck. It's a Dulux colour. And it's a grey, but it'll take on lots of colour. It'll because it's just off. It's like the first grey on the grayscale. It's almost a stop off white. And if you paint a whole room that colour, it looks like a white room. And the people stand out against it. They don't get overtaken by the white room. So it's nice to take your get a paint card that you like. There's some great paint cards that have got a range of whites on them and understand paint colours, so you can go to a production designer and say, no, I'd like it to be this colour if we can.
Peter, you were just saying as well you carry around paint in your kit, right?
In my camera
so
kit,
that's
yeah.
amazing. I've never heard that, but I'm gonna
Yeah, I've got an
love that.
English one, and what's that? Farrow and
Farrow and Ball.
Yeah, Farrow and Ball. They've got some great colours. You won't get them in America or in Australia. They're particular to English colours, and Dulux in Australia has a great white sample card. I cart that around too because it's really cool.
Just to give you guys a tiny little bit of background, Peter, I was very, very lucky. Peter was one of my lecturers at film school, so that's how we know each other in Australia. But just tying in from that, I did a short film when I was at film school called The Mime Artist, and what we did, and it taught me so much, what we did was, it was a little short film about a mime artist, and he goes from sort of grey, black and white world to this colour world when he meets the love of his life. It's beautiful. And but the production designer had painted his sort of little house all greys, because that was his world before he met her. And then when I started to light it, I realised that it took on all this colour, these grey walls, and it was just that very simple thing. And I was like, okay. Light bulb came on then.
That's you end up painting with light, which is what you do. I've done that on one film, Rebel. We had a production designer who liked red. Oh my God! And it was set in 1943 in Sydney with the Marines on R&R and partying at an all-girl dance band club in like a tin hut in the middle of the street, and everything had to be pink and red. And that was really challenging. So when we did night exteriors, I had to put flame red on the maxi brutes to light the walls of the street to make it feel like it's part of the film, because otherwise it looked like it'd been cut in from another film. That was crazy. Okay, what's next? We better keep moving, I think. We've got stacks to talk about. This is a great. Who's this guy?
Hammershoy.
Yeah, from Denmark, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's up in that northern part of Denmark. There's a great book called. You should look up this guy. He's a fantastic. It's one of the great references of images. Bruce Beresford gave it to me after one film. After I did Rich in Love with Albert Finney, and I was going for this look. But I had never seen this reference at that stage. And can you show us the other one? And I wanted to have something missing on the walls, as if somebody is missing from the film. The wife has left the husband and the kids, and always we had to have an open door in shot or a window, so you might see the wife walking back in, but of course she never does. But the whole film is spent this way, and I used Edward Hopper as my compositional reference, just for composition, not for colour, whereas this guy was more for my colour reference. And if you divide up a Hopper canvas into sixes, if you divide it, you'll find that there's two absolutely blank sections in every painting he does, and there'll be the major bit of information in the character in the picture is usually only in 2/6 of the picture, and the rest is like decoration. And he's a great inspiration, Hopper. Very, very good.
I saw a hopper recently. I live in Margate in Kent, and they had one in the Turner Gallery there. It was, I forget the name of it, but it was a red building, and you could see in the windows, of course, and half a lady. But the red in it, I hadn't realised from just seeing your reproduction pictures of it. But when you came around the corner of the gallery and you saw it, the red sort of glowed from inside the painting, and it took my breath away. Talking about his colour.
Yeah, he's a great painter.
Beautiful.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to see live hoppers, he has a bit of a Matisse palette, and I'm a huge fan of Matisse's palette. That sort of turquoisey green that he uses, and just all the colours that. Just look at Matisse's palette, and you can learn an awful lot from that. And you can, if you reflect on that, and in fact, often I see a painting, I think, oh, I really like that, and I think, why do I like this so much? Oh, he's used a Matisse palette, or she's used a Matisse palette, and it's something psychological in the colour choices that Matisse has put together. There's quite a few people do use that Matisse palette. There's an abstract painter from America. He uses it too. I can't think of his name now. Brilliant stuff. Am & Hammer Museum has a lot of his work. I might
Jacob, can you bring up that Matisse? I think it's in my folder. Just while Peter brings up Matisse, we'll bring up this picture. Is it just called Matisse, I think?
Studio.
Yeah. This, I wanted to put this one in because I think for me this is a fascinating Matisse painting called The Red Studio. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's like 1911, I think. But in real life, his studio was grey. But he said that he painted this because this is how he felt when he was in his studio, which to me is what is so fascinating about colour, I think. Because if I say to you guys, imagine a red dress, then you'll all imagine a completely different red. And then if I said to you, okay, let's take a patented red colour like the Coca-Cola sign, and you all thought of that red, you'd all think of a completely different red as well, because it's not just about colour, it's about that it's going into your eye and into your perception and your brain, and you're processing it. So these are the things of philosophy that people, study at university and stuff, is how we actually perceive colour. And to me, I think it's just a fascinating topic because we'll all never see it. I mean, I think we can all kind of remember a melody or something, auditory senses are a lot more memorable, but colour is so slippery that, it moves around all the time. So I think this is a really good example of how it makes you, feel.
Want to move into Mao? Should we have a look at that?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to look at those coloured perception?
Oh yeah, just bring up that, I think it's called Albers, is it? This is a good example of that I was just talking about, and it's what Peter was touching on before about colour perception and colour contrast, and it's all about what colour goes next to which colour, and if it's complementary or if it's contrasting. And I think when you look at this, I looked at this in a book, and I was like, okay, and the book said, how many colours are here? I don't know if you guys, if you want to. Two? Anybody else? Three? Yeah, it's three. The crosses are the same colour, which you can tell by the bit down the bottom, because they join.
Really, they're the same colour?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you can only tell that because of this little bridge here at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
So I looked at that for ages in a book, and I was like, 3, that's wrong. But it's true, because the crosses are on the background colour, it changes them. So to me, that's what's fascinating, and that's what I try and think of sometimes if I've got certain characters or in cinematography, is what colour is next to which colour and how they vibrate against each other, or they can complement each other or fight against each other. And I think this is just a great example of that.
I was first aware of harmonic colours when I was out in the at the dog fence in Western New South Wales, and we're out there with this guy whose job was to have a bulldozer to move the red sandhill off the dog fence. That's all he does, is move the red sand with a bulldozer. And the red sand goes up in this huge sandhills. It gets blown up, and the sky is so blue out there, and you look at this red sand lit by the sun, and you almost faint and fall over because your eyes get dazzly. It's like being on a green screen set where you've got no reference around you. You sort of, your inner ear seems to play up or something, you get out of balance. But those two colours were like harmonic, and they were buzzing against one another. And I thought, this is really cool, you know. It's sort of I only had a cheese sandwich, you know. And, I was like off my face looking at this this sandhill. It was quite extraordinary. So you know, the colour is very, very powerful. And when I went on my first trip around the world, I went on a Greyhound bus across America. I was about 25, and sitting in this Greyhound bus, you know, crashing across America, and you get out, and it had green windows, and when you got out, everything was purple, because your brain had got used to the plus green of the windows. You ended up with minus green, you know, outside, and after 30 seconds, your brain adjusts, and you know, you're back to normal again.
It's actually, we've seen that very often, very extreme on sets with colors, and you kind of get used to them.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to continue to work because you only have the monitor as a reference these days. When you are making a movie, you have the same thing as an audience watching the film.
Yeah.
Is that something you participate when you make the film? How are you going to adapt, and how the colors are going to change the audience?
Well, your brain adapts, and it's a fatal mistake. That's why every gel on the set has to be numbered, and otherwise when you're under a lot of light. Say you're doing a music video or a dance sequence or something, and there's a lot of colour involved. You keep adding more colour if you're not careful. You keep saying, "Oh, double up that gel, you know, and make that a bit stronger." And because your brain, you can't get enough. Your brain is doing the compensation the other way. It's bringing it back to zero all the time. So you've got to just take a break every now and then, you know, go to the bathroom, reset your brain again, and check your monitor if you've got one, and work off your either the settings you've given the gaffer on your lights or the gels that you're using, because otherwise you'll chase your tail and start adding more colour, and as the day goes on, it'll just become more and more, and it won't work, it won't cut.
It's important too, Jacob, what you were saying about the audience too, I think, because if you've got, and I always use this as an example because submarine films are the best at this, I think. It's like you're in the submarine and something goes wrong, so all the red warning lights go off. But if you just lit that, and if you watch any submarine film, you'll see this, if you just lit that with completely red light, then what happens to the audience when they watch it is that they become fatigued at that red. So that red is not as powerful as it was at the beginning of the scene. So if you watch those scenes carefully, what you'll see is in the background there'll be a white reference of light, or there'll be a blue, like LED flashing on some machine or something. And it's that colour contrast that makes the red stay red for the whole scene, or have the impact that you want to have on the audience.
Well, speaking red, get your swatch books out. Could we just have the house lights up a bit brighter? Go to E164 and E176. It's flame red and loving amber. So it's E164 and E176. Now I use flame red if it's the flashing light, you know, for the evacuate sort of thing happening, or the nuclear holocaust as something's happening. The flame red is the go-to light, and I'll put that on all the backlights and anything like that, anything that's deep in the background. But for the actors' faces, I'll use the E176, which is Loving Amber. And look how pink it is. It's how wishy-washy and light it is. And of course, the backlights are overexposed slightly, so therefore they'll lose their colour by overexposing them. But the flesh tone light on the actor, you may have them underexposed a bit because you don't want them fully at key. You know, you might want them, you know, just a cross light or something, but you want the red light to be the more urgent thing in the composition. So when you underexpose the Loving Amber, that goes almost as dark as the flame red. So if you double up the Loving Amber, hang on, I'll just double it up. See, that's what it would be like when it's a stop underexposed. You know, or if you get an ND, put an ND over the top of it, get an N3 out of the back of the book and slide it over the top, and that'll be, if you're underexposing them 2 stops, put an ND6 over it, and you'll probably find it's very, very, very close to the red. So every like 2 stops underexposed, it would probably be flame red at correct exposure. So you've got to be very careful, you know, if you lit them with flame red, it's also, flame red is on such a big broad spectral range as opposed to a blue, which is doing this. It's on such a big wavelength, it sends the image out of focus. It becomes infrared. And you know how they have an infrared setting on cameras and things like that for focus? Taillights of cars all go out of focus. When they stand on the brakes, it's out soft, looks soft. And that's what it affects. On film it does. I don't know about digital, but it's definitely soft on film. It's probably soft on digital too. You have to check it, do a test. But underexposing colour strengthens colour. Underexposing colour strengthens the colour. Overexposing colour washes it out, weakens it, makes it pastel. Okay, very big lesson. And the other big lesson is, we used to have a ditty, quarter for faces, half for places. So you use a quarter orange, a quarter straw, whatever, quarter blue on the face, and use half on the background or on the walls or whatever. Or you may even go to full in the deep background, because the blue mountains are bluer the further they are away from you. Yeah? Or the sunset, the orange is right over the back. The orange hills and the sunset, they're much deeper because you're going through more atmosphere. The colour gets strengthens with distance. So depth of colour is the depth of, that's again like underexposure, it strengthens the colour.
Do you feel that the stronger color is, the further it feels away? In general?
Yes.
No matter what the color?
No matter what the colour. It's always the stronger the colour, the further away.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Your head says it should be the other way around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you look at Rothko. You know Rothko, the painter.
Mark Rothko,
yeah.
Look him up,
Yeah, look up Rothko. He's like that guy'll blow your mind. You go, the Tate had a big exhibition of Rothko's. I went to, and it was. Sorry, I've got these all out of order now. I need a rubber band. Anybody got a rubber band? Rothko, he uses colour, and the dark colours come forward. Like he gives it's absolutely it screws with your mind in big time, and it's the only painter I know that can do this. He breaks the rule of colour, and I'm not an abstractist. I don't particularly like I've actually fallen in love with Kandinsky just recently. I visited Ari in Munich and went to the museum there, and they had a fabulous lot of Kandinskys, and like a lot. And I'd only ever seen 1 or 2, and they had rooms full of them, oils as well as little pastels and things. Go to Munich and see the Kandinskys. I tell you, you'll change your life. It's absolutely fantastic, and that whole blue period that was happening in Munich at that stage. And it teaches you so much just sitting in front of a painting, you know, it's just, you learn so much. It's just great.
Yeah. I just have to reference 2 books from Kandinsky at that point. Point Line the Surface for composition, and The Spiritual in Paintings are the 2 major books on Kandinsky, where everything's actually written in there.
Can you just zoom that back?
Yeah.
Oh, can we turn the lights down now?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry. No, there's a big. Where are the other 3 colours?
Okay, what are we looking for?
Kandinsky.
Oh,
No, the Rothko. The wider shot of that. Here we go. Pick
Sorry, give me 1 second.
the black squares with the red around the outside there.
Sorry, 1 second.
No, two black squares.
This.
Go back.
Oh.
Where's the,
Oh, sorry, you want a different picture.
that one.
Copy.
Now let's see what this does to us. Can you get rid of all the background?
Yes, sir. 1 second.
That's the one we want.
It's a gaffer and DP relationship, right?
Right, now, when you're standing in front of this, the black, which is a regressive colour that goes away, that's the depth, that's the black hole that goes off into the background. But here the black's coming out at you, it's floating on top of the red. He does this all the time. You think, you know, if you shadow a foreground or shadow something, you know, it's going to pull it down and make it recessive. But seeing his work live is a real treat, I must say. And it can't be too bright a room. They've got to be at a certain lighting level. I saw some Aboriginal paintings recently, and a friend had them in the house, and it was almost primary colours like this. And it did the Rothko. It reversed the depth perception, which is like this is very sophisticated stuff. You know, not everybody gets this stuff. You're really on the top artistic level looking at this stuff.
He even refused to go into exhibitions if he didn't get the right lux on the picture and the room.
Exactly. The paintings don't work. Yeah.
Just while we're talking about Kandinsky as well, I mean, he had that whole, obviously he's got a colour theory, but he's got the shapes are his big thing as well. And I don't know if you guys have seen or went to the Storaro talk where he's talking about his new lights, and he's got that triangle LED light, which he talks about pushing the light out, punching. I mean, it's not a mistake that's a triangle, right? Kandinsky believed that triangles should be yellow because they were energetic and they pushed out from the paintings that he did. So it's not only colour, what colour's next to which colour, what shape the colour is, and it's all that kind of interaction of colour that's so important. It's a bit like saying, you know, if you knew spelling, you know, you can't kind of understand poetry just because you know spelling. If you can identify colour doesn't mean you understand art. It's the interaction of the colours.
It's the essence of cinematography, isn't it? Not only the technical side. Cool. So, we do mouse now?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really ready for this, but could you help me with this?
Yeah.
I normally have all these. I normally get the gaffer to cut up the gels for me. Once we've had this week of discussion about what colour we're going to use, we then arrive at the palette for the film. And I must say I try and get a different palette for every film, but I don't. And I have certain colours that I absolutely love. 102, the deep amber, the peacock, and the 2 lavenders, the bright and the dark. And then there's, I did a film, Double Jeopardy with Tommy Lee Jones and Ashley Judd, and we had to do Mardi Gras, so I did the 102 and the, so you might find 102 in there. we might as well do that now while we're here. Yeah, 102 light amber, and the peacock blue is E115, and I used loving amber because it's my go-to red, and I think that was it for that film. What were the colours of Mardi Gras? Who's from New Orleans? It's a there's a blue, isn't there?
Purpley blue.
There's a purpley. Sorry, it wasn't. I didn't use loving amber. It was a. That was on some. Loving amber was like an accent colour coming out of clubs and doorways and things like that. Because we also had a girl with a red umbrella in the film, so that he was following, and it's a mistaken identity thing happening in the chase sequence. But it's a deep lavender, E170, and if you take E136 and double it up, you'll get E170. That's not a mistake. That's science. That's designed that way. So if you don't know whether you're going to need E170, because it is a very strong colour, you might just get a roll of E136, and you can always double it up if you want to. Or if you can also put a bit of magenta on it if you've got plus magenta, like plus minus green, or because you'll have that on your truck. And you might also want to put some a full blue with it. So you've got a full blue and a 136. So that will screw around things a bit and give you a much more. They'll produce even like a third and a fourth colour. So that was double jeopardy. But we were talking about something else. Oh, the Mao and the Whites. Mao, yeah. I did this film in China. You might just show them the classroom just to get the feeling, and we shot it on film. And I wanted it to look. We might dim the lights a little bit now. If everybody, you all see your swatches. This classroom, we built this classroom and out in a rice field, and I think there's like 3 6Ks coming in, and there's some Kino flows above the windows extending the light into the room, but there's no fill on anything. And I think I had blue on the Kino flows, and it was winter time. There's a little fire going in the set, and there was a little bit of smoke just leaking out of the fire. So that was quite nice.
The Kino flows had daylight tubes, and you added some blue onto top of them.
Yeah.
To the HMIs.
Yeah.
HMIs were clean.
HMIs were clean. They had frames on them, but they didn't get all the way into the room. So. We had to hide them behind the columns because the HMIs and frames are big, so they do get in the way. But we were getting these shots, just rattle through these. There's a lot more detail in the exterior, and I wanted detail in the exterior. They were dirty windows, but in the DI I could actually see outside, so I could see the rice fields in the distance outside, which I wanted. I didn't want to not see the exterior because otherwise we could have been in the studio. Where the blackboard is, we could remove that and we could put cameras in there behind it to get the other shots. So that was pretty clever. Herbert Pinter, our designer, made it so we could just take the blackboard away and have 2 cameras behind the blackboard photographing and still have the teacher in the foreground, because the set was made out of clay bricks, so they couldn't move any walls, but they could move the blackboard. And this whole sequence is really lovely, and I wanted to make it grainy, and I wanted to make it look like it was an old documentary footage from about 1952. And I saw it on TV, and I thought, wow, this is cool. The blacks are cyan blue, and the highlights and the whites are magenta, slightly magenta to red. And so in the DI, I did that. I made that as like a LUT in the DI, and we overlaid that. And we also shot it as half frame. We only used half of the 35mm frame, and I did a framing leader, and that became our when they transferred the Daleys, they just blew it up to that area. I underexposed it over a stop and a half because I wasn't. I wanted to push it a stop and underexpose it a stop, but I wasn't trusting the lab in China, so I just underexposed it. And then I pushed it in the DI, and it brought out the grain and the texture. Looks awesome. If you get to see it projected in a theatre where you can see all the grain and stuff, it's very, very painterly, and it dances. The grain dances, that's the lovely thing about film, is it's like pointillism. It's got every little dot is a different colour, and you know, for people like us who love colour, you love film, and you look at those Canadian paintings of the side of the boat. It's all those little dots. That's what film does. So just skip through these. And then we'll just go on to the dancing. There's the crew. This is fake snow, by the way. Not too bad, huh? And this was the boys broke into the principal's office and to play a video of Baryshnikov dancing. And here I've got the blue. I got to get the cheapest fluorescent tubes in the market, which were they made this really blue colour. We can't buy them in Australia. They're like a disgusting fluoros. And I put them. I said to Reggie, my gaffer, I said, put them right through the corridors. And so that's the light from the corridors. This shocking, mismatched coloured blue fluorescent light. And we just got one light bulb that's lighting the whole scene.
It's so interesting because the windows are so black, and we're so used to, or how we standard-wise do films blue through the windows.
Yeah.
It feels like turned around here, yeah?
Yeah. I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be very covert, because if they got caught doing this, they would be in big trouble. They're in the official ballet school in Beijing, and they would have been thrown out, and they probably would have been penalised somehow or other. So it was a great tension with these marks and all the leaders looking down on them. Yeah. So here we are. This really should be darker. Can you make that darker? This was a day for night sequence, and it was a big room, and it was scheduled for night time. And I said, "Oh God, it would have taken all night to shoot it, and plus then I would have had to light it." And so I said to them, "Oh man, this is going to kill us if we do this." And we're in this high school, which is way like it's an hour out of Beijing, an old school they shut down. We'd taken over, and Herbert had put in a dance floor in this place because all the ballet dancers had to dance on sprung floors, otherwise they'd break their legs. And so that's a special floor he made. And he found that Mao painting behind the auditorium curtains, so that was a nice find. And so what I did is I left the windows open on the side and kept them out of shot. And in fact, in the film we get one window in which I Rosco scrimmed down and put a bit of half 85 on it to make it not so blue. And then behind those doors there, I put a 10K with double 85 on it, and put cut a shadow on it, and that was it. And we lit it, and we were lit in 5 minutes, and we shot the whole ballet sequence in normal time, and it goes on for quite a long time. This boy's doing split jumps in the air, and he's failing, and eventually the master sees him, comes in, and walks over and have a long conversation about you really should be in bed, and it was done very simply and very effectively in a day for night situation.
What always strikes me is because as a gaffer I always come in actually when we're shooting, and I always feel that lighting is done beforehand, like you already created everything that's necessary to make it magical. Like just when you look at the picture, just the way the highlights pop up here.
That's just natural. That's the windows doing that. Yeah, it's just the window.
Do you sometimes work with reflectivity on objects that you know already it's going to be dark, so you're just going to try to make it more reflective, so it's going to pick up more? Is that something that you talk about beforehand?
Oh yeah, with the production design, it's nice to talk about. Sometimes you want a semi-gloss or a finish on something that just to make it a bit more interesting. I get together with the production designer about that, and what was the film we saw just recently that they had a? Oh, the film, the Polanski film, that was running at the festival. The set paintings of that is probably the best set paintings I've ever seen in a film. The painting was just spectacular. If you get a chance to see it, it's worth it just to see it. Oh, it's a beautiful film, but it's worth it just to see it for the painting. Any comment on paints? No. Yeah, but painting's really, really important, and as you say, you don't want to like that. The Polanski film, there's no white rooms in that. It's all dark greens and really heavy greys, and it looks fabulous.
That was it. We had in the
That's it. Okay, so go to the dancing, the ballet stuff now. Now this is a shithouse photograph. I'm sorry. Apologies. I was busy. I didn't have time to photograph stuff. And this is Giselle, and they're doing this dance for Madame Mao. And Madame Mao is not impressed at all. She hates it, in fact, and says you've got to come up with something new. And so they're all coming out. They come out in these old peasant costumes and all that sort of stuff. And it's a standard backing. They've unravelled. And but this is not lit with white light. It's lit with a whole stack of gels. There's 6 gel. There's no white light on this at all. There's 6 colours in the gels. They might just bring up the swatch book light. Oh, thank you. And for ease of sorting it out. Now, just thinking, what would you if you had to use 6 gels to make white light? What colours would you use? How would you go about this? Yeah, you could use primary and all primary complementary primaries, yeah. But they're very deep colours. Like a primary blue is 47 gel, which is that's like a 47, or it's darker than a medium blue, which is a 132. It's probably more, it's almost as well, or it might be as dark as an Alice blue, a 197. Like that takes all the light. That's like black, That's like, you need brute arcs to get light through that. And then the red would be a flame red, and the green would be like a really heavy peacock, or even a darker green than that. So I thought that'd be way too light absorbing to do primary. So I thought the next best thing would be to use half blue, half 85, and then let's get a green and a magenta, right? So we get a green and a magenta. So, and then I wanted to get like a lavender and a yellow. So I got one of the, I think it was the light lavender, the pale lavender 136, which is pretty light. And then I don't know whether it was a pale gold or a bastard amber. I think it was bastard amber because I remember the name. So 162. So we had 162, 136, and then we've got the half CTO. Well, I actually like CTS because it has less red in it. And you've sometimes got to convince the gaffers because they've got all their frames made up in CTOs, but depending on what you're doing. I know in the old film days you really had to have CTS because flesh tones went too red. And then half blue, and then the magenta, a quarter plus green, a quarter minus green. So that's the recipe for white.
Is that this picture?
That's this picture here, which when I ran the color meter across it, there was no green spike, there was no magenta spike. There was slightly amber a slightly amber, was reading a slightly amber on the Minolta meter. And I thought, well, I can cope with that because if it's too amber, I can just add a little blue correction in post. That'll fix it. But I didn't want it to be, I didn't do anything in post, in fact, because I liked it being amber, and it made it look old-fashioned. So what happens is when they dance, there's a stack of 2Ks up there. So I've got about 4 lights with each colour on. So it's about 16 lights, right? And they've all got a colour on them, and they're all about, I made sure they were about the same density. So in some cases I diffused them a little bit, in some cases I put a bit of ND on them just to balance them up so that one wasn't brighter than the other. So they're all equal value in exposure density. And then as the dancers all run around the stage and dance everywhere, their shadows are these rainbow colours. All the shadows on the floor, on each other, as they pass one another, as they lift one another up. They're all these, and it's like a pointillist painting. It's like an impressionism. It looks like something out of the French school of impressionism. It's quite wonderful. Yeah, it's quite a wonderful look.
How far were the 2Ks away from the stage?
They're in the ceiling. They're up above. They're all theatrical lights, and then there were some out the front that were coming in. The ones that were lighting, that were doing the front lighting, were the same. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so that they were all mixed. Okay. So it's a bit of work. It maybe a few extra units, not too many, but getting the gels up and you do it all in prep anyway. So the boys can quietly work away to getting that together while you're shooting something else. Then Madame Mao comes back, and can you start with the red one?
This one?
That's the fade. That's the red. So this is how it starts off. Now when Madame Mao comes back, they do the revolutionary thing, and this is flame red. It's a white cyc in the background. So I lit it with flame red, and I found that a lot of meters are exposure meters are not color corrected. They can, if you're reading colored light, it doesn't often give you the correct exposure. I used to do a lot of this in commercials where I'd paint sets with light, and so I used to use my Leica, my Leicaflex meter. That was an accurate meter, so that gave me the correct exposure. But here we've got blue light coming down, and there's blue light on the tree. The boy in the middle is our hero. He's in a spotlight, which has got a quarter blue on it, slightly blue, because I like the feeling of a cold spotlight. And flame red lighting the background, and I think it's deep lavender doing the wall and the quarter ballet shining down on them. It's a blue mauve, and then as he shoots at the guy, or he gets shot. That's right. The guy on the wall who's trying to kill him, he takes a gun and shoots him, and as he falls off the wall behind the stones, we fade to the go to the fade, which is the one after that, the one before that. No, go back. That one. See, there's the fade. We fade to blue because then a guy comes up on the wall with a red flag. Now go to the blue ones, and there they are. There's the ballet, and we fade off the blue light that's lighting the ballet, and replace it with white light, and that white light also lights the red flags, and the blue is like a heavy medium blue or something. I can't remember the number we used on that one. I think it was medium blue, 132, and the ballet do this heroic victory dance, and of course Madame Mao thinks it's absolutely the bee's knees and loves it.
I think the mic doesn't work.
Gone off. And then just clip onto the other one, which is the Rider Spring. Now, if you're thinking about those pastel colours, in the swatch book there's a cosmetic section around 184. It really pays you to become, sit on the toilet and look at swatch books. Leave it next to your toilet, because it's a very contemplative thing, and get used to them. Get used to where things are in the swatch book. All your diffusions are down the back, and your fluorescent colours and all that sort of stuff. A lot of theatrical colours are up the front. But those cosmetic colours, they're expensive, but they're very nice colours. They really are nice colours, and you can put them together to make white light too. So what you should do is pull out the equal and opposite colours and put them together and produce white light. It'll produce an ND. If I had more time, I'd get into that. But I did a commercial for Campbell's Soup, and it was all these chefs in a kitchen. It was out at the Ryde Film School, and it was a stainless steel kitchen. And there's these big chefs, big fat guys with big white hats, all pleated and so on. So I put a wall of a 20 by 10 silk up, diffusion, and then behind it I had 5K with a full blue on it, 2K with a full orange on it, 5K with a full blue, 2K, 5K, 2K, down, all the way down. That's it. No fill light, and I put some smoke in, because they were making Campbell's soup, and there was soup, some smoke coming up from the soup, and steam, and looked amazing, because all these guys, they're all blocking one another and walking around and doing stuff, and the stainless steel, and the stainless steel had blue and amber in it. Their pleats in their hat were all blue and amber. It was so painterly. The client went absolutely, lost it. They just loved it. They absolutely loved it. It was so rich and warm and cozy, and like an old painting. It had come to life, and that produced. I had to use the 5K for the blue light, because why would I have to do that? Shorter wavelength absorbs more light, whereas the amber doesn't absorb as much light. It transmits more light.
Should we move on to Pincushion? Have a look at Nicola's trailer and then go from there? Yeah, that'd be great. Nicola shot an amazing film, also has a lot to do with light, and she used... You know what, I won't talk about it, you can.
We'll have a look at the trailer for it. It was a film I did a couple of years ago, and it went to Venice Film Festival in 2017.
Where are you from? I don't know. I was abandoned as a baby, and this old hunchback lady found me in the forest and looked after me.
The bells! The bells! The bells!
She loved me and raised me, and then one day she walked me to the edge of the forest and set me free. Today's the day I get to meet my new friends.
I haven't seen you before. What's your name?
Iona. What did you do today?
I've been barn dancing.
Oi, new girl. Have you sucked cock? Probably.
I'm Lynn, and I need some friends.
I just wanted to say.
What have you done to yourself?
Makeup gives boys the wrong impression. One sign of lipstick, behave like animals.
Iona! I just didn't know what to say. To participate was another mistake. It's what you think.
Why do they do that? They like making people unhappy.
Just stop it. Under the influence of the norm.
Don't worry, we'll take care of you.
Thank Thank you. Actually, I was just telling someone before, it's about £1 million film, so it's low budget. I was just saying to one of the gaffers here before, we had a gaffer and a best boy, and then when we did the night scenes, we had a third, the very nice luxury of having a third electrician. So it was pretty low. Yeah, exactly. Can you just bring up the photos from in Pincushion? Yeah. Basically, the philosophy of the film, as you can tell from the trailer, they're a mother and daughter, and they move to a new town, and basically it's about getting bullied and marginalised by society. So even though, you know, she sort of, the young girl falls in with the wrong crowd at school, and then she gets, you know, it all goes a bit wrong and she gets bullied. But the mother also gets bullied because she's a hunchback. So it's about, you know, not just being at high school. So what I wanted to do is I wanted colour to be a major thing throughout the film. And because the characters throughout the film get sort of twisted and marginalised and pulled this way and that way, I wanted to use contrasting colours in a lot of the scenes. Like this, for example, this one is, you know, a party scene. So blue and red were a major theme. But can you go to the next one? And throughout the film, there's these fantasy sequences. So Iona, the young girl, she grew up in this sort of world that her mum has created, which is full of ornaments and knickknacks and crochet and stuff. So it made sense that we talked a lot about this in pre-production with the director, that Iona's fantasy sequences would then be the world that she'd grown up in, but heightened and pushed. So the fantasy sequences are completely out there, and I used the very unfashionable star filters to to highlight that. As you saw at the end of the trailer, when the girls walk away, there's all that sort of glittery backlight going on. But in this shot, this is marine blue, I think, and that is a sort of you know, more cyan blue. But that went through every fantasy sequence. So what I wanted to do, and sometimes it's just a tiny little hint in the background or whatever, reflecting off something.
So it's a greedy blue?
Yeah.
A greedy, like a teal or a turquoise or something?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a teal. There's blue in the real world of the film, and can you find the shop one?
Which one?
There should be a next one. Keep going. That one.
Oh, yeah, shop, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the real world, this is not a fantasy sequence. And I was saying to Peter earlier that what I did for these shots and this location was, instead of colouring the lights, I put an 80A filter on the camera. So that's a filter, as you guys probably know, that used to be used for colour correction in film days, but I wanted to use that, and I use the 85 sometimes as well for warmer scenes. And
what camera did you shoot on?
Alexa. So digital. So yes, I wanted to use the old colour correction filters in another way, just as coloured filters. And people say to me, well, why didn't you do that with lighting in this? Well, that's where the art of it comes, with the practicality. And we were actually shooting in this shop whilst it was physically still being used as a shop. So people were coming in buying their milk while we were trying to make this film. So that was... But it just made all the, I mean, it's daylight coming in the windows, obviously you can see at the back, and then all the mixture that you would get in a corner shop of all the weird fridge lights and the overhead lights I kept on.
So why did you do it? Why did you make the supermarket blue? Because I always think the only thing that's white is your bathroom mirror and your the supermarket. Mm-hmm. And I know the supermarket's not white; it's actually green, because it's they're what they call what not warm white.
Cool white.
Cool white. They're cool white fluoros, and that's quite green, isn't it? You know, there wasn't. They did. Rosco made a Jungle Book. Anybody remember the Jungle Book? Yay! Bring back the Jungle Book. That was the best book. Everybody loved the Jungle Book. It wasn't a great wad like this, and it was just the big double-sized squares, it was all the war colours that you needed to survive as a cinematographer, to change your fluorescent colours and to sodium vapours and all that. It was all in the Jungle Book. Yeah. But why did you use the colour?
It was blue because in the story blue represents sort of knowledge, and so it's purely a story character point. And the shop is where she meets the boy for the first time, and the mum later on, she goes in the shop and something else happens. And
it's the same colour then?
Yeah, it's exactly the same colour then. So it's kind of a bit dangerous and it's a bit knowledgeable. It's kind of things are just, they learn things that...
It's edgy.
Yeah, things are going to go wrong.
Right.
So it's a slippery slope to go down to when you try to reference colors to something. But if you do it in a film and you have a scene where something happens that's strong and you add a color, it actually then sticks to the scene, right? Is that the way you did it here too?
Yes, exactly. I think as long as it's consistent to the world and you, with your director and production designer, that you've set up the world consistent to that world, which this is, every time you go there, it's this colour. And then when we go to the fantasy sequences, this blue goes to the marine blue. So it gets twisted. A big reference, can you go, there's William Eccleston. Yeah. I think they're in that folder. A big reference to the film was, you guys know William Eccleston's photography. So what I loved about his photography, these ones, yeah. So he takes, there's a lot of photography under mixed lighting, but he also sort of twists colours. Can you go to the next one? Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So because the characters in Pincushion were twisted and marginalised and pushed aside, then, I thought, why don't we take the colours and twist them? So I don't know if you guys remember in the trailer, there's, can you go to the next one? There's, they're sitting at the dining table, and there's, that's all right, Jacob, just go to the William Eccleston, no, just go to the William Eccleston one, just scroll down to next one.
That's great.
That one.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing for him, is the dress yellow, is it green, is it mixed? It's got some blue in the shadows of the yellow. It's actually a yellow dress, I think. But he's photographing it under certain light and mixing, they're all mixing and twisted. So I took that idea from Eccleston and put it in, as an inspiration into Pincushion. When they're in the trailer, they're sitting at the dining room table, and there's like this, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's like a bright pink wall behind them. That was probably the strongest colour I've ever photographed.
Very strong.
Yeah, and in the actual film, it's green at the beginning, and then the mum decides to paint it this bright sort of cerise, I think. And then later on in the film, when things are even worse, we put tungsten light on it, and then it goes crazy. Yeah. But what was really important in Pincushion was that collaboration between the production designer and myself and the director. So we tested all those colours. We painted swatches in the actual location and then lit them and then said, okay, that one. The gym where they're in is yellow with a stripe round it, and it's got marine blue in the background. So we tested all those yellows and made sure they were correct.
What fun, huh?
Yeah. When you have walls painted so extreme, do you then decide which units you're going to use, tungsten or daylight, depending on the wavelength from the colors that you actually have in the room? Or is it just simply what's the most convenient?
Well, for the pink one, we tested them under, because we knew we had night practically lit lamps, because it was kind of like a dining room. So, but we knew that scene was because it's a dining room, they're in there a lot, so it was under both daylight and tungsten conditions.
And that's the way you choose the color then? You checked both colors and saw what one would be best?
Yeah, if we have enough time.
Have we got time to see the trailer again? Sure. Would you like to see the trailer again? Now that you've spoke? Yeah?
You got a question?
Yeah, when you were in the superstore, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the shop.
Why did you choose to do it with a filter on set and not do it in grade? It was just a filter over the camera?
Because I was taught by people like Peter, and I trained on film. So I want the film to look like I want it to look, so I want to light it like that way, and do it in camera, and then when I get to the grade I want to just enhance it a little bit. I don't want to create the look in the grade, because I think it's to do with planning and the character journey that we talked about, so I think it's important to make. Also, I think the directors look at it and edit it for a long time, don't they? So they get used to a certain thing.
That's very important.
So Deborah looked at the icy blue for a long time while she edited, so I think that's important, because when they edit all the pictures together, you know, that colour journey comes throughout the whole thing, so it's good that they edit it like that. It was really funny actually. A very good friend of mine is a news cameraman, and he went to see Pincushion on the big screen, and I said, when he came out, he said, I said, did you like it? And he said, oh yeah, I loved it, but there's something wrong with the lighting in that shop. So it was quite funny. And I said to him, it's nothing to do with reality, John, you know, it's to do with the story. He was like, yeah, I'm just trying to be funny. So.
But that is a good point that you make. The directors they look at it with the editor all the time, and the editor dicks around with it on the Avid and other whatever they're cutting on, and they think, oh well, editor puts their $2 worth in and says, oh no, we'll make it a bit greener or make it pinker, and then you get the film back and you grade it, and you must grade your own work. If you're a DP, you have to grade your work, because you're the only one who knows what the thing's going to look like. And then you show it to them, and they say, oh, I didn't think it was going to be, you know, that blue or that dark. And it's mostly the dark thing, because when you used to shoot on film, you didn't shoot it at, you know, 4 stops under, because you'd have no negative to print, and it'll just be a ball of grain. And the same way with digital, you can't shoot at 4 stops under. It's going to be just a bundle of grain. It'll be just noise, and so you've got to take that extra step in the final grading, and the producer often comes back and says, oh, I've tested this film and it worked really well, and now you've made it all dark. Nobody will like it, and all that sort of stuff. So you get a lot of flack over this stuff, and you've got to stand your ground and be a bit ballsy, and stamp your foot and insist that you know, we discussed this, and they've got to know going in. And when you screen it to them, you can say, don't forget it's going to be darker finally. Or sometimes you can get with the editor and say, look, would you mind just, you know, knocking this all down a little bit for this screening, just so that it's going to be more like it's going to be, so that people get used to it. So you've got to do a lot of psychological work as well. Not only psychological work to get the gear and get the lenses and to do the deal with the rental company and get the gaffer you need and all that sort of stuff, but you've got to do it at the end with the editor and the producer.
Cinematography is as much about politics, right, as it is about all the technical and the arts side of it. It's managing a team and managing people and relationships and stuff, so it's a big deal. Can you just go, I'll just make one more point about Pincushion, and there's a picture where she's in the bath, in the Pincushion fold.
What's that one?
So the one with the, just go back to, we'll talk about this one first. This one was lavender, pale lavender, I think, which Peter pointed out to you before. On the, we didn't have, we didn't have the actress there in testing, unfortunately, because we were low budget. But when we came to do this scene and we put the pale lavender on, what was apparent was that it just blended with her skin, because she's got this sort of Sissy Spacek glow about her, which is so beautiful. And then when you put the pale lavender on, you're like,
flush,
it brings up those cheeks and the makeup, and obviously cinematographers working closely with makeup artists is very important as well. So it was a nice, and the purple, sort of the lavender thread in the film is about the mother-daughter relationship of love. So this is a scene where she sort of comes to save her in a fantasy sequence. So it was very appropriate. There it is. And the one before with the glittery sort of backdrop, yes, that's another fantasy sequence with the star filter and spotlight. And in the actual thing, the spotlight's moving around. It's not just a highlight in the background. But you can see that marine gel on the edge
green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the greeny blue. So that's just, again, tying in all the fantasy sequences together. So as a visual, you know, subconsciously the audience is going, okay, now I know where I am. I'm in a fantasy sequence.
You seem to do that a lot, that you use like, there's a color of the elements of the whole thing, then the actor gets something, then you just tie in a third color to get some contrast or some more depth into the whole color palette. Is that something you do regularly, or just when you really are looking for contrast?
It's a taste thing, I think. I'm just a big colour contrast fan. There's a William Eggleston one in there which proves it. There's a guy in a chair with a lamp. Yeah, this one. I mean, this is one of my favourite photographs of all time.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's just, I mean, to me, the red lamp just makes it, right?
Yeah.
And they do that in films like Amelie. I'm sure you guys have all seen Amelie, where they've got that sort of tobacco sort of grade, and then there's one bright blue lamp, you know.
Does Wes Anderson do this sort of stuff? I'm not sure.
Where's Anderson?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I'd have to
I'm
go
not
back
sure,
and look.
yeah.
Massive.
What's the name of
William Eggleston. Great. Yeah, we're nearly at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, I guess we're down to questions because we got to wrap it up soon. So, anything come to mind? Or you want to look at the trailer first? Trailer, yes, please. One guy screams trailer, everybody else is silent. That's what happens. That's what we're going through right now.
Where are you from? I don't know. I was abandoned as a baby, and this old hunchback lady found me in the forest and looked after me.
The bells, the bells, the bells.
She loved me and raised me, and then one day she walked me to the edge of the forest and set me free. Today's the day I get to meet my new friends.
I haven't seen you before. What's your name?
Iona. What did you do today?
I'm gonna be bar dancing.
There's the pink.
Oi, new girl. Have you sucked cock? Probably.
I'm Lynn, and I need some friends.
I just wanted to say.
What have you done to yourself?
Makeup gives boys the wrong impression. One sign of lipstick. Behave like animals.
Iona! I just didn't know what to say. To participate was another mistake. Swerve your fate.
Why do they do that? They like making people unhappy.
Just stop it. Under the influence of the norm.
Don't worry, we'll take care of you.
I just want to say something about chips. Like, and we've all got different shooting on different cameras, and that's like your canvas that you're shooting on. But not all chips are the same, and the color rendering of the chip is not the same. A fellow cinematographer in Los Angeles, Roy Wagner, did a thing on the slaves in the Deep South, and he shot on a Blackmagic camera, and he said that was the best flesh tones he'd ever had in a film. And I thought, you know, gee, Blackmagic's not a very expensive camera, it's quite cheap, but he really liked the look of that. So everybody's going to have their preference, like you're using an Alexa or a whatever, you know, a Sony or a Red or a Canon, a Panasonic. They're all wonderful cameras, but I think you've got to just look at them for what they bring to your film and to your project. And I found that digital compared to film, when the old ditty of quarter for faces and half for places was a very strict rule, basically, and but which you varied, obviously, because that's what you do. but when I applied that to this last film, The Ladies in Black, when I got to the DI, I found that the colours weren't as strong as I was used to on film. Have you found that? Mm. Yeah. So I really should have gone maybe half for faces and full for places. I maybe should have been a bit braver and more bold in my colour palette, and that's just something you really have to test. And the more familiar you are with that, it's too late to find out in the DI like I did that you should have gone stronger.
Mm. Well, thank you much, you two. I hope it's been the same way for you. I hope we get a full day with these two brains at some point to talk about color. There's so much open, so thanks so much for coming. We're all here. Is there any questions coming up?